Welcome and good morning. My name is Lama Tom, and you're at KTC Columbus. And if you were anywhere in the neighborhood, you know there's lots of snow on the ground. We have a small audience here this morning, and everyone that came gets 5 points on their merit badge for being here. But anyway, so let's begin as we always do with the refuge prayer. And we'll say it in English 3 times. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. So let's just take a moment to relax, using our breath as a stabilizer for our awareness. Just easy in and easy out with our breath. A nice straight posture, but relaxed. Mingyur Rinpoche one time said that the greatest obstacle to meditating is thinking that the next moment is better than this one. So just be present, relaxed. So again, welcome on this day after Valentine's Day, right? It's snowing here in Columbus. We have a level 1, I think. So it means we can drive according to the conditions and be safe. So today, what I wanted to talk about, a couple of months ago, well, actually in August, I was texted by a Sangha member, and he wrote to me with this. He said, one of the challenges with our Sangha is that I have been feeling even less personally connected. I know that it is because I have felt like all these people get it and buy in, and I'm a fraud for pretending. I think that's a pretty interesting comment. I'm sure that there are times when there are people here in this room that may feel that way. somehow isolated, somehow thinking, I don't get this. Everybody else seems to, and I'm not. So today, this talk is going to be my reply that I gave to that person in August. Again, it's about feelings of feeling unconnected. Then after I give my response, I want to talk about the real basis for community within the center. Because getting it is not the criteria for any community here. Spoiler alert. The criteria for community here at this center is based on the two bodhicittas. And I'll explain those a little bit later. So when I explored this feeling that this student had, I realized that part of their disconnection might be the result of people they met here at the center. So let's start there. If one encounters people who are acting smug, who are acting self-satisfied, acting like they're in the know, or they're complacent in any way, if they're acting superior to those around them, I can assure you they haven't got it. In fact, these characteristics that I've just described are a sure sign they haven't got it. A true follower of the Buddha, one of their characteristics is their lack of arrogance and their dedication to serving others. An unselfish desire to benefit other beings. I'll come back to that in just a moment. First, let's look at the student's statement that they feel inferior because others seem to get it. Again, certainly anyone saying they got it has not gotten it on so many different levels, because Buddhism is not something to get. In Buddhism, there is nothing to get, to grasp hold of. That may sound a little strange, but that is the case. One of the fundamental tenets of Tibetan Buddhism is that we all have within us what it takes to wake up. It is within us. It's nothing we have to get out there. And that is in us and is the basis for our practice is our Buddha nature. The path is all about discovering that potential to wake up that is within our own mind. Everything we do here in this center is based upon this journey to discovery of our Buddha nature. Every practice we do is about finding that potential to wake up, that potential that is always there within us. And we refer to that journey as the path. So we are here in this center working on recognizing our Buddha nature, our potential to wake up, and to recognize that same nature in everyone that comes here. Since Buddha nature is within each of us, it is the basis for waking up. And because it exists in every one of us, this community reflects, or should reflect, a spirit of equality and community. Those are really the desired characteristics that should shine in this center: equality and community. If these qualities of community and equality are not manifesting, the students in this center have strayed from the path. Pardon me for a moment, I lost my place. So again, the path is all about discovering this potential to wake up. Seeking it elsewhere other than our own mind strays from the path. Everything we do here is about that. So we are here in the center working on that. Reinforcing this communal unity that we all share is the result of our recognizing we all want to be happy. We share that desire to be happy. The Buddha taught us that we are unhappy because of the result of two things: a grasping at a illusory self that doesn't really exist, and our ignorance regarding the nature of things. So it's our grasping and our ignorance. So the idea here is that if we can diminish our self-cherishing, in a sense, getting out of the way of ourselves in a more open space, happiness will be the result. This happiness is called waking up or enlightenment. So how do we get out of tripping over ourselves and isolating ourselves from the community? We begin by humbly going to a secure basis for refuge and spiritual growth: the Buddha, his teachings, and his sincere followers. Then on that secure basis of refuge, we practice. We've got a lot of work to do, right? But our motivation makes that work a little lighter. That motivation of a sincere desire to benefit beings, that makes our work load a little lighter. So much of our lives have been based on me, my, and I. And that only leads to our unhappiness, to our isolation, to our always looking out to see who's benefiting me and who isn't, and taking score. Our afflictive emotions are the result of this clinging to this self. So we take the path of unselfish service to others. It's logical. In the beginning, for all of us, this wanting to fit other beings is most emotional, because we do trip over ourselves. We aren't always skillful in how we try to benefit others, but we maintain that aspiration. And through practice, we can begin to overcome this me, mine, and I behavior and attitude. Slowly, we start to be more mindful of the consequences of our actions, both for ourselves and others. We recognize that when we harm others, we're harming ourselves. And we start to recognize that when we benefit others, we're benefiting ourselves. We become aware of the consequences of our actions. And that can be painful sometimes because we also have to recognize how we've harmed others. We practice what's called the 6 paramitas, and I've talked about those before. Basically, they are behaviors that lead us to unselfish service to others. We begin our practice of virtue through generosity, giving what we have to benefit others, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Then we practice ethical conduct, avoiding harming others, doing the best we can to help others, and at the same time, in that process, training our mind. Then we practice patience in service to others. Patience here has a lot of different meanings, but we recognize that sometimes we fail to benefit others, and sometimes others are not responsive to our effort to benefit them. And so we are patient with ourselves because we're growing, and we're patient with others. With patience, we dismiss the idea of retaliation when we're harmed. Because retaliation, of course, is going to harm the other person, and it harms us. But the point here is not we are passive in our practice. There's an edge to our practice, a diligence about our practice, a joy about our practice. It's not simply a passivity to what arises. It takes some diligence, some edge to our awareness. And so when we practice with diligence, with all the physical and mental powers we have, and we do it with joy, because that will eventually lead to our awakening and the awakening of other beings. The 5th paramita, virtuous activity leading us to the truth of enlightenment, is meditation. Meditation is sometimes called concentration or mental stability. Meditation requires the power of all the previous virtues that I just mentioned. And they say, and I think it's true, that meditation is a trademark of Buddhism. You and I live in an age characterized by distraction and mindlessness. We live in an age lacking in wisdom. Therefore, we live in an age often seen for its malice and retribution. In this upside-down world, malice, hatred, retribution are seen as civil virtues. And any fabricated performance of virtue is seen as transitional. If I do something nice for you, I'm expecting something back. That's not our way. That's a transactional way, not a Buddhist way. Because if we are transactional, we want power, we want prestige, and we want favor in return. lacking stable minds and overcome by distraction, we can't see things as they really are. We are continually susceptible to the illusions of what we might call Las Vegas conjurers and carnival magicians. They create unhappiness for ourselves and others. And we create that same unhappiness by considering their delusions as real. However, through meditation and stableness of mind, we can begin to see the nature of things as they really are. Our fifth practice, our fifth paramita, the virtue of meditation, leads to wisdom. It is only through a stable, calm, and calm mind that we can see things as they really are, and seeing things as they really are is the wisdom we seek. Buddhism calls the nature of all things emptiness. Now, it's a little tricky to talk about. First of all, I'm not at the level of recognition of true, so it's sort of above my pay grade, but I'm going to do the best I can to explain what emptiness is. And needless to say, very few people, if anybody here, has that kind of realization. That comes later on the path. There may be some of you, I'm not wise enough to know. I don't see. So there may be people that have realized emptiness, but I will assure you I haven't. But even having said that, I'm going to take a stab at it. That's probably a harsh word, isn't it? But I'll try. Basically, emptiness means that everything changes according to conditions. I underscore everything. Everything changes according to conditions. The Buddha said that we can never find anything with an independent, unchanging basis. You're here because of causes and conditions. Most obviously, your parents. You wouldn't be here otherwise. So there's, in that sense, we can apply that emptiness to ourselves. The idea being here too is that since we are the result of causes and conditions, once we withdraw those causes and conditions, that no longer exists as such. It's transformed or changed. So if something, here's the other part here. If something was not changing, if something couldn't change, it wouldn't be affected by anything, nor would it affect others either. This inability to change would totally make useless and irrelevant the path. If we couldn't change, how would we ever become awakened? So, in that sense, emptiness is a good thing, not a bad thing. Emptiness is another way of saying that there is nothing independent. Emptiness does not mean that there is nothing there. Everything we know is there, but its way of being is fluid and ever-changing. We look around, the change of seasons. Things are always changing. Everything is conditioned, so everything can be affected and changed. Another way they describe emptiness is that things are more like our experience is more like a dream or a mirage. In fact, a mirage is a very good example. It's sort of strange how you can, as you're driving, particularly if you're in a drive, you could be driving and see water in front of you. It's a mirage. It's really not water. The person you driving with might also see the same thing. And you would conclude, since we're both seeing it, it must be real. We're often chasing after mirages. How does this happen? How does that mirage appear? It's the result of causes and conditions coming together in a particular way. We can see it from afar, but on closer examination, closer up, it's not there. It's gone. At a distance and without examination, things seem to be solid, real, and substantial. On closer examination, they are constantly changing. So again, I say, however, that emptiness is not nihilistic. So we begin to understand emptiness through change and interdependence. So let me go back to the student who felt disconnected from the center because they felt others were getting it, but they were not. As I said before, there's nothing to get, nothing to obtain outside our own mind. But there's a lot to discover within that mind. But again, there's nothing to get. Those committed to the mission of this center and to their Buddhist practice are committed to that discovery. The discovery of that potential within us, that potential of compassion, compassionate heart, that open heart. And everyone in this room and anyone that comes through that door is equally endowed with the ability to begin that journey. And so we as members of this community should be welcoming anybody that comes through that door who has goodwill and good intentions, and who also want to commit themselves to that discovery. So everyone who comes through this door has some feelings of isolation and self-cherishing. And through our community, we work to overcome that. There's a lot of shy people around. And it takes effort for them to overcome that shyness and commit to community. So, from my standpoint, anybody that comes through that door is committing an act of courage. It goes counter to the culture we live in. The other thing I want to stress here is that this journey and the end result of that journey is not the result of a flash of lightning out of the sky. It's a process. It takes time. It takes the virtue of patience. But fortunately, we've been born human, and we are supplied with the proper equipment for that journey. For anyone having an elitist attitude who feels exclusive entitlement, the journey hasn't begun for them. For us, our practice is in communion with all beings. Even when we practice in solitude in our homes, when we're practicing at home meditating, even then we are in communion with others. How? By way of our aspiration, by way of our intention. Our intention is not simply for ourselves, but for all suffering beings. And we bring that intention to every practice we do here. We always begin with refuge, and a part of refuge is saying, for the benefit of all beings. You will not find a practice that we do that doesn't include other beings. That's our heartfelt intention. So it's inclusive. Everyone is included in that desire for them to gain awakening. Since all beings are just like us, and since all beings suffer just like us, we are dedicated to that aspiration, to bringing all beings along with us. It pervades our practice. Our discovery of who we are is bound up in our communal ties to one another and all beings. Why? Because we will never wake up without the presence of other beings. So, to put it simply, we're all in this together. I think we all want that kind of community. And I would want it for that person that's feeling isolated. So what we have been discovering are called the two bodhicittas. Bodhi means awakening, citta means heart and mind. So bodhicitta means the heart and mind of enlightenment. All the virtues, the practice of love and compassion are called relative bodhicitta. In the world of appearances, we are kind, loving, gentle, and benefiting other beings. Wisdom, the wisdom of emptiness, is ultimate bodhicitta. Experiencing the nature of things as they really are, that's called wisdom. We experience things as they are, not as they appear. And the aspirant of bodhicitta we call a bodhisattva. To me, relative and ultimate bodhicitta stand as a mighty fortress against the delusion, distraction, and cruelty of our time. Why? Because where there is hatred for the marginalized, the bodhisattva sows love. Where there is retaliation against perceived enemies, the bodhisattva cultivates patience. Where there is distraction, the bodhisattva cultivates a calm and stable mind. Where there's despair, the Bodhisattva cultivates joyful diligence. Where there's cruelty, the Bodhisattva sows the seeds of compassion. Where there's ignorance and delusion, the Bodhisattva cultivates wisdom. The two bodhicittas stand as a mighty fortress. This is who we aspire to be as individuals and as a community. It's an inclusive community. All this community requires is a sincere heart and a mind up, and to wake up for the benefit of others. So my prayer, my hope is that this community become a mighty fortress here in the Midwest and wherever else it may influence. A mighty fortress never separated from the two bodhicittas. A community of service, love, and compassion with a view towards emptiness, and a place where no one feels marginalized or isolated. So one of the ways we develop our empathy and compassion is called Lojong, Tong Lin. Has anyone heard of that term? Tong Lin was covered. So Tong Lin is basically, in order to develop empathy, love, and compassion, we sort of have to switch places with other people to get to some understanding of what they are all about. We use a visualization to do that. And basically, we, through our imagination, take on the troubles of others and give to others the strength we have. So let's do a little Tong Lin. So we can start out by just quieting our minds, settling down a bit. The form of Tong Lin that I'm going to do, it was inspired by Kempo Holmes, Ken Holmes, who in turn received this transmission from Jondam Contra. I asked him if I could do some of this, and he said it's open for anyone to practice. So it's a little bit different than maybe you've done before, if you haven't heard Kempo Ken. So we begin by, to the best we can, quieting our minds. Just being aware. And now we visualize that from the top of our head, extending to our heart internally, there is this tube of bright light. Think that from the top of the head to your heart center is a tube of brilliant light. It's open and flared at the top, and at the bottom, it's a hollow vessel, you might say. And in this heart center, think that a fountain, multicolored fountain, flows, representing all the energies of your body. Now think of the Buddha. And if you're not a Buddhist, think of Jesus, whomever you reverence, as vast as space above you. And slowly, 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 it gets smaller and smaller. But it retains its brilliance. This Buddha is brilliant and comes down to the center of our heart and rests on this multicolored fountain. You're visualizing as best you can your Buddha nature. Now think of yourself out in front of this visualization. Think of all the times you felt isolated, marginalized, when you felt overwhelmed and alien. Think of how that felt. And now, with the in-breath, take in those feelings and allow them to come into your heart. And because you have Buddha nature, they dissipate. That's on the in-breath. On the out-breath, give to yourself in the form of brilliant light all that you need to overcome your feeling of isolation, the courage you need, the humility you need, the desire you need. Send that out in brilliant white light. Take in on your in-breath those feelings, and on the out-breath, give all that you need to overcome those feelings. Be courageous because you have this Buddha nature. Allow that image in front of you to dissipate. Now think of the marginalized people in our world today. The trans people, the Jewish hostage, or the Palestinian. Think what they might be feeling. Fear, anger, isolated. Allow yourself to see that, to feel that. And on the in-breath, bring it in the form of dark smoke. And breathe out whatever they need. And saying to yourself, if I could, I would. I would give you whatever you need to overcome your marginalization, your fear, if I would, I could. And I send it out in white light, brilliant white light. And their fear comes into our heart center and dissipates because you have Buddha nature. Maybe you have one individual that you can think of particularly. Visualize them. And say to yourself, if I would, if I could, I would. Now let's recognize that all beings suffer. Think of that. Visualize all beings suffer. Take in that suffering in the form of dark smoke. And in bright light, send out to them whatever they need to overcome their fear and isolation. If I could, I would. Now allow that visualization, just drop it and just relax. Allow the visualization to dissipate and just relax. So Sarha, who was a great yogi, he said this. It might be a little hard to understand, but I think if you think about it, you'll get the picture here. He said, in the non-judgmental sphere of realization, when we have this sense of the equality of everybody and understand that, he said, in the non-judgmental sphere of realization, tears flow naturally from overwhelming compassion when the misery of ignorant beings is so clear. I'll say that again. In the non-judgmental sphere of realization, when we wake up, tears flow naturally from overwhelming compassion when the misery of ignorant beings is so clear. And then he says, switch places with others and do what's useful. Another place, Sarha says, it's sort of poetic, but it's I think beautiful poetry. He says, while the radiance of your affection that cannot bear the suffering of others is unceasing, You are aware of its empty nature. This is the unification of compassion and emptiness. So what's he saying there? He's saying that when we wake up, the radiance of our compassion will be unceasing. And it will be such that we cannot bear to experience the suffering of others. And it will be unceasing. And at the same time, we recognize its empty nature. Suffering is empty. You remove the causes and the conditions for that suffering. It no longer is there. I'll say that one last time. While the radiance of your affection that cannot bear the suffering of others is unceasing, you are aware of its empty nature. So that's cinema talk. Anybody have anything that they would like to comment on? Questions? Things they're interested in? Irritated them? Yes.
You mentioned that you were going to explain bodhicitta.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss
Okay.
explanation?
Bodhicitta, there's two words in that. Bodhi, which means awakening, and citta means heart or mind. And as I've explained it, there are two levels of that. The first level is called relative. This is where we practice the virtues of the paramitas. That's on a relative level. Those practice of those virtues, and in particular meditation, leads us to recognize the nature of things as they really are. That recognition is called wisdom. It's Buddhism. We're not there yet. We're still working on the relative. But we can have glimpses of the ultimate bodhicitta. Does that explain it? I get a nod. Anybody have anything else they'd like to? Yes. Speak up real loud because I can't hear. Speak up real loud.
Yes. I am procrastinating on my hearing aids, so I'm sorry, I lost a lot of what you said.
Okay.
So speak up back at you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Probably you weren't the only one that had trouble. I speak very softly. Yeah, in future times, I'll look to you, and if your hand's raised, I know I'm talking too softly.
Also, thank you for talking about welcoming people who come in. I, at community time, try to look at people who are sitting by themselves and people who I don't recognize. So I try to sit with them and I try to be friendly.
I think that's a wonderful practice. Again, going back to what I said before, many new people coming into this center, it was an act of courage. They had to overcome their thing. Oh, I don't know if I don't know if I can manage being in this strange place with all this stuff around. I don't know if I can manage that. So you're going overcoming your own reticence is a practice of generosity. It's a paramita. It's giving of yourself. It's a virtuous thing to do. You gain merit from that. Yeah. Yes.
Kind of have something.
You have to speak real loud.
I know it's not just me. I'll have to transmit your answer to my daughter. My daughter and I are having a hard time with everything going on currently in the world and our nation. The Buddhist concepts of right speech and compassion for those who are fearful or struggling. For the last, I'd say 10 years, we've been working really hard to be understanding of the fear that has led people to make choices that harm others. But today, with the paradox of tolerance, where if you tolerate intolerance, you allow it to spread. We want to speak out and be more active in not allowing people who are causing harm to others to go unremarked, unchecked, unaddressed. But at the same time, if we're supposed to have compassion for those who harm us, and compassion for those who harm others, and have right speech, finding the balance between stating, this is what this is, and having compassion for the fear that creates that behavior. How would you advise today, with everything going on, that we call a spade, but also have compassion for the fear that is causing them to behave in that harmful manner?
There's a lot to unpack in your question, isn't there?
Yeah, well, I'm having trouble advising my 13-year-old who deals with
Yeah.
it every day at school,
Sure.
who will speak out against bad behavior that she sees. For example, a peer who is being not respectful of others' boundaries with their bodies, for example. She'll speak out vehemently in defense of the person whose boundaries are being violated, but then afterwards she's like, am I violating them by speaking out?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and obviously you see the correspondence with what's going on
Yeah.
everywhere.
I think your 13-year-old daughter shares all of our feelings right now.
She does, yes.
She's not different from most of us here in this room. There's a lot to say about that, and I don't know that we have the. I respect your time, so I respect your time. But if you don't mind, we'll go over just a few minutes because this is a good question. And first of all, and most importantly, I'm not an enlightened being, so I don't know absolutely what is the right answer. I can only speak from my heart and say what I think. And I think, first of all, that we have to recognize our own limitations. I have a sphere of influence. Right now, it is within this room. It doesn't extend much beyond that. Oh, maybe in Zoom land, but it's not that big. I can do so much. It is arrogance on my part to think that I'm going to cure this malice and hatred that exists in this time. But I can do my part, and part of what I have to do is examine my own self for my own hatred, for my own malice, for my own prejudice, and work with that. And whatever I do, I work with it on the basis of increasing my love and my compassion for others. And where I can be a protector of someone who's being mistreated, I want to do that on an individual basis. I will not, and I will never join a group that fosters hatred. In regards to the person causing problems, Shantideva, who was an 8th century saint, said, consider the person who is causing the harm as creating so much bad karma for themselves that at some point in their own life, that bad karma, unless purified, will cause them enormous suffering. They also have to say they have Buddha nature covered up, but it's there, and we have to respect that in some way. And in some way, we can't harbor a lot of hatred for them. We're all working on this, you know. We're all working on this. And for your 13-year-old daughter, that's the person you most influence. And so teach her to love and to be compassionate. Teach her not to hate. Teach her empathy. We forget sometimes the most important people we influence are right around us. We're wanting to march off to bigger things, and we ignore the people right next to us. So we start there. I'm not saying don't do the marches and all that stuff, but I'm saying don't ignore the people that are in your path. They are there for karmic reasons. Your daughter is there for she is your daughter for a reason. But, you know, we all struggle. Maybe this sounds idealistic, but my thought is that we will get through this period, this difficult period we are in, as a result of 1,000 kind actions, millions of kind actions that we perform. I cannot help but think that we are in this condition because of all the bad karma we have communally collected. That's just me thinking. I don't know that that's so. Karma is way beyond my pay range again. But my thought is, we are in this spot because of all the malicious, mindless acts that have been committed in our history. And the only way we're going to move beyond it is through our kindness. And that may take 1,000,000 efforts on many people's part. But I also do believe that no amount of hatred or anger or retribution will get us out of the spot either. No amount of hatred. We can hate the people that are contributing to this mess. It's not going to help. Yes? Why don't you come up closer, if you don't mind? I hate to put you on the spot like that, but you too share with me a soft voice.
One thing I heard was when people behave not nice, I would describe it as one thing I heard was these people are doing it because they want to be happy somehow, and it kind of comes very away from some of this.
Yes.
Also, one thing I heard was we kind of have to, when in those kind of situations, we kind of have to know ourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, we are over time by a lot. I apologize. Anyway, so as part of what we do, we always dedicate the merit of what we have accomplished here for the benefit of all beings. It's an act of generosity. I'm going to give away whatever merit, it's like, I'm sounding transactional. It's like we got 10 merit points for being here. Well, we're not going to keep those 10 merit points. We're going to give them to everybody. It's one way to think of it. So dedication of merit, it's on the back page here. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, I free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas, that I may follow in their path. I completely dedicate all this virtue. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for your extra time. Again, you're going to have to put your hand up when I.
But, he speaks it pretty clear. So it'll take 3 days. I've been using both hands. Yes. That's a good advice. Level 2 hands. You betcha.
So that would be ways to go, but it's really beautiful. That's very, very pretty. Yeah, she was probably, thank you, that's so kind of you. You still are doing something where I want to break into this.
Now I have to do this.
Yes. Right? Hey, Bethany. Yes. So this is not a cup of coffee, is that right? Or is that? As far as I know, when you're going to have to say the things that should be like the children. Oh. Just see the face. Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember what the item is?
Yes, the ball.
Oh, I'll get it. It's just right here. I think it's just not gonna see that. We went to this stuff with it. Thank you. Is it actually down there on the table?
It is.
You got the paper? Got it.